Music Row on Entertainment Tonight.
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. The nation's commander-in-chief and the commanding officer of Battleship Iowa today praised and mourned 47 sailors who died in the gun turret disaster. The nation was given its first close-up look at the crippled turret and first details from a survivor. Our coverage begins with White House correspondent Leslie Stahl.
A nation grieving, a service for the men of Turret 2. A painfully familiar ritual, the tears and anguish of hundreds of relatives of fallen servicemen.
I remember Turret 2. I remember their faces. They were the life, the spirit, and the soul of our ship.
President Bush, for the first time, our leader in mourning, a Navy pilot who lost his own shipmates.
Let me say to the crew of Iowa, I understand your great grief. I promise you today we will find out why, the circumstances of the tragedy. But in a larger sense, there will never be answers to the questions that haunt us. We will not, cannot, as long as we live, know why God has called them home.
Widows sobbed, fathers too. The Bushes, as the Reagans used to, personally comforted every family member, moving slowly from row to row, from person to person.
The toughest part was, this is my only son. This was our only boy. And then a couple of them had, one lady had a locket and showed us a picture of this kid. Another one had a picture that she wanted me to see of her boy.
The president said later that the Bush family is not very good at this sort of thing, and confessed that he's asked President Reagan, how do you do it?
And your men are under a different command now. One that knows no rank, only love. Knows no danger, only peace. May God bless them all.
There were prayers for the men behind the guns, for Eric Casey and Gary Fisk, for Jose Luis Martinez and Otis Moses and Tung Than Adams. They were young, and they were from all over America.
There is a prayer upon the hearts of all here today, and upon the hearts of your fellow Americans, that God may grant you his peace, that he may mend your broken hearts.
The Iowa's damaged turret number 2, seen up close for the first time, shows scorch marks on the huge 16-inch barrels and a canvas tarp where a 5-inch thick hatch cover was blown off, but little other evidence of the massive explosion inside that killed 47 sailors. Captain Fred Musali was on the bridge with Admiral Jerome Johnson, the commander of the Second Fleet, when the accident happened.
I was just about ready to turn to him and tell him, hey, this is my best crew coming up here, Admiral. You got to watch these guys fire. And I saw the explosion that I think you have seen on a tape. I saw the fireball coming out of the center gun area. I heard another explosion, then a third explosion.
The captain ordered the powder magazines flooded to avoid a larger explosion that could destroy the ship.
Shipboard fire is one of the most terrifying things a sailor can face. We don't have anywhere to run.
Kendall Truitt was one of the sailors working 5 decks below the guns when he heard the explosion. The turret phones suddenly went dead.
The smoke was filling all the spaces. We knew there was no one on the lines. We knew something was drastically wrong. There should have been at least 15 different people on the phones.
Hearing nothing, Truitt scrambled to safety.
I lost a lot of friends. Petty Officer Malahi and myself are the only 2 gunner's mates out of 25 that are left in that division. So I lost 23 friends right there.
The captain said he has no idea what caused the explosion, and the investigation may take weeks to complete. But Captain Musali said that should an emergency arise, the ship need not be confined to port.
If we can't fix it right away, we can just button that turret up and get on our way, because we've got 2 other turrets that are in great shape, and the rest of the ship is in great shape.
But the families of the 47 fallen sailors who left a floral cross at the base of the turret are likely to demand some answers before the Iowa's guns are fired again. Terrence Smith, CBS News, Norfolk, Virginia.
The defense minister and foreign minister of West Germany were in Washington today to meet with Secretary of State Baker on what has become a political crisis for the Bonn government. After waffling back and forth on the issue, the West Germans now want the U.S. to open talks with the Soviet Union on reducing short-range nuclear missiles in Europe. The United States has opposed that idea, arguing that while Moscow is cutting back its conventional forces in Europe, it still holds an overwhelming advantage on the ground. CBS News Defense Department correspondent David Martin has been looking into the shifting military balance on the front lines in Europe.
18,000 Soviet troops, complete with top-of-the-line tanks, on maneuvers in East Germany. For 40 years, the fear of a Soviet attack has kept the NATO alliance together. To convince the West such an attack will never come, Gorbachev is pulling 5,000 tanks out of Eastern Europe, beginning tomorrow in Hungary. The Soviets have promised that the units will not just be withdrawn, but disbanded, and their equipment either dismantled or turned over to the civilian economy.
Essentially, he's cutting Soviet tank strength in half. It will, in fact, be a major reduction in the Soviet offensive threat, particularly in a surprise attack.
But American soldiers who patrol the NATO side of the border say their increasing ability to monitor Soviet forces already had virtually eliminated the threat of surprise attack. The real threat comes from a long, slow buildup of Warsaw Pact forces, which could overwhelm NATO by sheer weight of numbers. Today, Defense Secretary Cheney said that has not changed.
Warsaw Pact forces would still outnumber NATO in tanks and artillery and divisions by more than 2 to 1.
If the Soviet military threat remains, the public fear of the Soviets in Western Europe is decreasing, which is exactly what Gorbachev intended.
These unilateral actions are designed to create an atmosphere where the West will feel compelled, either as a mutual action or as part of negotiations, to reduce its forces facing the Soviet Union.
There's going to be a lot of thought around as the ballyhoo begins about taking some tanks out of a town in East Germany, that the whole thing is now over. We can forget the sacrifices that are necessary to maintain the defense.
Today, Cheney clearly signaled that the Bush administration remains opposed to NATO cuts in response to the Soviet withdrawal.
We have to be cautious not to get caught up into a situation that would be extremely dangerous from our standpoint should this turn out to be only a temporary aberration.
The sight of thousands of tanks being loaded on railroad cars bound for the Soviet Union will make it increasingly difficult for Western leaders to explain why they shouldn't return the favor. David Martin, CBS News, East Germany.
Japan's Tokyo Broadcasting System reports that Prime Minister Takeshita will announce his resignation today. That would be today, Tokyo time. The government has not confirmed that report. The Prime Minister has been under steadily mounting pressure in a corruption scandal. Takeshita is among several leaders of the ruling party who accepted money and favors from the companies seeking political connections. And still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, Richard Roth on a teenage rampage in Central Park that shook New York City. And David Browning on the weighty problem of pets who are not picky eaters.
Enjoying yourself. That's what life is all about. And it's easy when you have the best bladder control protection. Depend Undergarments has special layers of absorbency that won't bunch or sag, and elastic legs for a better fit. They're the best protection and the best way for you to get back into life. Hey!
Get back into life with Depend.
Now at Red Lobster, one great thing deserves another and another. Introducing our great seafood trios. For a limited time, find 6 new trios starting at $7.95. More of everything you crave, like 3 great tastes of lobster, a new trio of shrimp and crab. Something for everyone. Starting at just $7.95. Kids' dinner $1.95. Don't miss the great seafood trios at Red Lobster. And don't forget Secretary's Week. Celebrate with lunch at Red Lobster.
They came across country by wagon and settled in Amana, Iowa. Whatever they needed, they made by hand. Made it the best it could be. That same fundamental is still practiced today in Amana, Iowa, the home of Amana Appliances, a Raytheon company. Whatever you make it the best it can be. Raytheon. where quality starts with fundamentals.
The Prime Minister of Jordan stepped down today, a casualty of widespread rioting last week in which 8 people died. King Hussein accepted the resignation of Prime Minister Zed Rafi, who took the blame for price increases imposed last week. The price hikes were part of a deal with the International Monetary Fund to ease terms on Jordan's $6 billion foreign debt. A student strike shut down college campuses in Beijing today, and the students threatened to keep it up until the communist government grants their demands for more political freedom. The Beijing uprising has been peaceful, but elsewhere in China, demonstrations have turned violent. John Sheehan reports.
Pro-democracy student demonstrations that spread from Beijing to other cities were far more extensive than the Chinese government has admitted. These pictures, obtained by CBS News, show a massive protest march over the weekend in the provincial capital of Xi'an. They also show the moment when youths, described by officials as common street toughs, not students, broke from the crowd and went on a violent rampage. Buildings and vehicles were set on fire. Rioters smashed through the wall of a government compound, then tore bricks from the wall to throw at police. In Beijing today, tens of thousands of students boycotted classes. Students from several universities rallied for freedom of speech and freedom of the press. For the first time, they also demanded the release of all political prisoners, and some called for multi-party elections.
The government failed to give the people much more democracy, and it is not a government by people, of people, for people.
At Beijing University, China's most prestigious institution of higher learning, the student body renounced the government-sponsored student union and formed one of their own, along with an independent newspaper. By sheer weight of numbers, the students have forced the unwilling communist authorities into an unprecedented exercise in democracy. Many university faculty members have sided openly with their students. The students acknowledge, however, that they can succeed only if universities in other cities join them in a nationwide college strike. John Sheehan, CBS News, Beijing.
The Communist Party chief of Soviet Georgia admitted today that some people were killed by poison gas when Soviet troops broke up a nationalist demonstration 2 weeks ago. The party chief did not identify the gas. Other Soviet sources say the troops used 2 types, one similar to tear gas but stronger, and another that affects the central nervous system. A Soviet scientist said that second gas could cause permanent symptoms, including headache, nausea, and loss of memory.
There's got to be a cure for athlete's foot.
There is. Step up to the mic.
Mike?
Micotin. It cured my athlete's foot. It's got miconazole. There's nothing more powerful than this.
Step up to the cure. Step up to the mic. Micotin.
We've studied your mouth from every angle and created a toothbrush with a very special angle, the Reach toothbrush, with a dental angle designed to clean even back teeth better, to get your teeth 51% cleaner than the other leading brush. Reach for 51% cleaner teeth.
Today's Monday, coming off a rough weekend. Saturday, I painted the den and came up aching, so I took aspirin. Sunday, I cleaned the attic. More aches, more aspirin.
If you take aspirin more than once a week, make your aspirin Tri-Buffered Bufferin. It's 100% aspirin, plus 3 buffers that help protect against stomach upset plain aspirin can cause.
I sure needed it this weekend.
Tri-Buffered Bufferin, in tablets and caplets. If you take aspirin more than once a week.
This is what I wonder. If this is just right, how can that one be just right? I mean, here they have fruit and nuts with all those flakes, and there they have fiber nuggets, huh? So this isn't just a little better, or maybe it's a little worse. It's just right, just like the other one. Hey, they both taste great and they give you all those vitamins, but the thing is they're doing it in different ways. So they may both seem just right, but it's just not physically possible.
Kellogg's Just Right. For the perfect blend of 100% nutrition and great taste, no other cereal is just right.
Of course, I've been wrong before.
Doctors in New York City late today reported slight improvement in the condition of a woman raped and beaten by a gang, but they could not rule out severe brain damage. The story has enraged many New Yorkers, startled others, and started renewed talk of an under-policed city with crime out of control. It is one of those cases that could turn out to make a difference, one that may, at the very least, be revealing about the times and about New York. Richard Roth is covering it.
There are flowers now in Central Park and a handwritten prayer at the place where the ambush occurred, a brutal attack on a young woman jogging late and alone. The 28-year-old victim still lies in a coma. A teacher called her Golden Girl, an investment banker with a blue-chip background whose savage beating and gang rape last Wednesday night has provoked outrage in a city famous for indifference. 8 suspects in the crime were arraigned this weekend, aged 14 to 17. They were part of a mob of teenagers, 30 or more, say police, on a rampage of random violence that the kids have described as fun, a nighttime adventure these children of the city call wilding.
10 to 20, 30 people getting together, doing what they got to do.
Wilding, just doing strange things, that's all, but not like beating up people.
But police now say at least 9 other people in the park, joggers, bicyclists, and a homeless man, were targets of the same band of youngsters. 4 of the accused came from a housing project on the edge of Harlem. Laura Briscoe's grandson is one.
He said he said, Nana, I didn't do it. They are trying to say that I did it, but I didn't do it, Nana. I don't know anything about the lady.
When those grandmothers say, but he's a good boy. He never did anything. Don't you believe it? Don't you believe ever that it's ever the first time when they're caught?
It's not a new crime wave that's unnerved New York, but an example of violence that seemed to break the bounds of big city brutality.
It's a new phenomenon that's frightening, very frightening, that these young people don't really value life and actually get some type of perverse fun, if we can call it that, out of injuring and hurting people.
Police say the attack in the park wasn't apparently racial, nor drug-related, nor tied to robbery. And authorities say the teenagers have expressed no remorse. Richard Roth, CBS News, New York.
A landmark federal trial began today in Seattle. An admitted alcoholic is suing the liquor industry, not in her own behalf, she says, on behalf of her son, in a case that may affect 30,000 other American babies born each year suffering from fetal alcohol syndrome. Jerry Bowen is covering the trial.
Candace Thorpe and her husband claim that the producers of Jim Beam bourbon should have warned her that drinking alcohol could cause birth defects. As it was, the admitted alcoholic drank half a bottle of the bourbon every day during her 1984 pregnancy, and her son Michael was born mentally retarded and physically deformed, diagnosed a victim of fetal alcohol syndrome, a preventable disease that afflicts 1 of every 750 newborns.
Not all, but many are retarded, and some to a very serious degree.
For Beam and the $77 billion a year alcohol beverage industry, the stakes in this first-in-the-nation case are enormous. Sales are already declining as the health risks with alcohol become known. Now there's the specter of a series of potentially costly lawsuits.
What they have to fear is being held responsible the same way that the manufacturer of any other dangerous product is.
With the Thorpe case, Beam and the liquor industry are going down a road already traveled by the tobacco industry, arguing that any harm was self-inflicted, at the same time refusing to concede their product may cause any health problems. But the road may be rough because of the growing body of scientific evidence.
It's a well-recognized group of symptoms that go along with drinking in pregnancy, heavy drinking in pregnancy.
Even small amounts, at least early, can affect children. And small amounts, we're talking like maybe a drink a day.
And the damage, facial deformities and lifelong learning disabilities, occurs early in the first 2 months of pregnancy, according to studies, before many women have even seen a doctor. California and New York already require bars and liquor stores to post health warnings. Next fall, federal law will require beer, wine, and liquor containers to carry warning labels. Candace Thorpe claims a warning would have changed her life and her son's. A distillery official in a court document said even a skull and crossbones on the bottle won't stop a heavy drinker. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Seattle.
Pain. Pain that throbs. Aches. Pain that pulses. Remember, there is a wonder drug for pain like this. The wonder drug doctors themselves take more often for pain. The wonder drug doctors take more than extra-strength Tylenol, more than Advil. More doctors take Bayer for pain. Bayer is the wonder drug that works wonders.
Are you getting
getting something extra in your high-fiber cereal, like sodium and added sugar? Fiber One is low in sodium and has no added sugar. So get more of the fiber your body needs and less of the stuff it doesn't. Get Fiber One.
Next time you get heartburn, consider yourself lucky, because now Rolaids comes in assorted fruit flavors, still calcium-rich, sodium-free, and as effective as ever. Assorted flavored Rolaids. Relief never tasted so good.
The old gray Subaru ain't what she used to be. Introducing the larger, more powerful Subaru Legacy.
Change of scene for the House Ethics Committee investigation of House Speaker Jim Wright today. Some panel members are in San Antonio looking into an oil well investment deal that reportedly netted questionable profits for Wright's blind trust. Speaker Wright says he was unaware of that transaction. In Fort Worth, the people of Wright's home district are watching and worrying over Wright's ordeal, worrying, among other things, that they might lose the federal money and jobs he's been steering their way, and to the hurting Texas economy. CBS News correspondent Richard Schlesinger has our report.
Well, I'm so glad you made it out today.
In his 34 years in Congress, Jim Wright has had Texas over a barrel, a pork barrel. His Fort Worth congressional district gets more federal money than almost any other area.
We're sure that we're going to get our fair share when you have the leadership and the speaker there representing you.
When the Texas economy was dragged down by sinking oil prices, Fort Worth was kept afloat on a sea of federal money. $5.5 billion in 1986, more per capita than any other city. Most of that money went to General Dynamics to build F-16 fighters and keep 28,000 Wright constituents employed.
Well, if it wasn't for Jim Wright, I wouldn't be out here 23 years.
And when the Pentagon wanted to stop building the A-7 fighter bomber, Wright convinced the military it still needed the plane.
He's done a lot for the people around here, and nobody's going to forget that.
Wright's power over federal dollars also helped bring the only money printing plant outside Washington to Fort Worth.
What could be more fun than sniffing all those freshly planted $20 bills?
24 million more federal dollars went into turning the Fort Worth stockyards into a tourist attraction. After so many years on the federal gravy train, the prospect of falling off or being pushed off scares a lot of people. You'd think Fort Worth Republicans would be licking their chops. They're not.
Of course, we would like to beat him. But on the other hand, is it worth the expense of watching someone go down the drain that has served in the Congress for 34 years?
A recent gathering of newspapermen lampooned Wright's frequent trips to the pork barrel.
I'm the pork barrel wizard, my charms they can't resist. The pork barrel wizard when there's an arm to twist.
But the fact is, the city has a lot to lose if Fort Worth and the Speaker stop making beautiful music together.
So let me entertain you.
Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Fort Worth.
Mandan the condor chick had a visitor today at the San Diego Wild Animal Park. A life-size hand puppet acting as surrogate mother showed up at feeding time. This puppet is used so the chick won't become dependent on humans. The California condor baby was hatched 5 days ago.
This is a phone. This is a finger. This is how easy it is for anyone to get 100% fiber optic long-distance calls that cost less than AT&T and sound better. Just call US Sprint now and talk with the best.
Feel your oats with Post Oat Flakes. Feel your oats with Post Oat Flakes. Golden toasted flakes with whole grain oat nutrition and a crunchy oat taste. Feel your oats with Post Oat Flakes.
One was named Wilbur, the other Orville. Two brothers who shared a belief. A belief that when the fundamentals of aeronautics were properly applied, man could fly. At Raytheon, we haven't forgotten their lesson. Consider the revolutionary new Starship from Beech Aircraft, a Raytheon company. Many of the fundamentals are the same as the one built by Wilbur and Orville. Raytheon, where quality starts with fundamentals.
Hey, how'd it go on the new job, son?
Not bad. You know, they asked me to a meeting today.
They asked the union.
Yeah, it was a meeting on how we can improve quality. Well, they want to know what I thought.
It's not like it was when I was on the line.
You know, I had a pretty good idea.
3 GM makes were rated as the best-built 1988 American cars by their owners in the latest J.D. Power Initial Quality Survey.
Among the things we try to do on this newscast is keep you up to date on trends. With that in mind, correspondent David Browning has been tracking one possible new trend that combines concerns we Americans always seem to have about losing weight with our love of pets.
Behind closed doors in this country, there is a story of shame and secret cravings and ravenous appetites unchecked. We're talking about America's dogs and cats and their eating habits.
I'd say 30 to 40% of the dogs in our practice are overweight. With cats, maybe 20% of the cats are overweight, but it's getting worse.
That translates nationally to 10 million fat cats and 18 million dogs who can't get their noses out of the bowl.
I don't think we really realized just how truly fat he was.
Good dog, Lucky. Drop the ball.
Dogs like Nancy Solomon's Lucky, all 92 pounds of him. Cats like Jane Anderson's Shlomo, who's pushing 20 pounds.
We didn't do anything to get him this way. He just was born fat.
We're feeling right. We're eating light.
The deplorable state of America's porky pets has produced an animal fitness movement of sorts. The $5 billion a year pet food industry is pushing new light, lean cuisine for animals. One company is sponsoring fat cat contests to push the product and help preach moderation.
Eating morning, noon, and night. That's how Smokey trains. Thank you, Smokey.
That's a boy.
At the pet resort in Los Angeles, they preach exercise for animals who spend too much time lazing around and eating. That's exactly the kind of behavior that landed Lucky, the 92-pounder, at the vet.
If the owner is stringent about the diet and sticks with that food, then they should be able to reduce the pet.
Most studies show obesity affects animals without regard to color, creed, or breed. But on New York's fashionable Upper East Side, Mel Davis, dog groomer to the rich and famous, reports seeing fewer weight problems all the time. The wealthy apparently believing the adage, you can't be too thin or too rich, applies to poodles, too. As for light pet foods...
They're good.
You tried them?
Yeah. Can't hurt you. Chock full of vitamins.
Meanwhile, back at the Fat Cat Contest, Shlomo has just been declared runner-up.
I guess you can't see it over there. We get a giant cardboard cat house.
And the winner is Paulette Cope's Persian R2, weighing in at 23 pounds.
Oh, it's wonderful. I'd like to see him really trim it down. That's why we entered him in this program.
So, be resolute, pets of America. There's a new slimmer you coming. If only somebody would hide the treats.
No, Lucky.
David Browning, CBS News, Beverly Hills, California.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. See you tomorrow. Good night.